Hi everyone, it's Karolyn here, and I'm super excited to share a video showing you how to engineer the mechanism to make two images meet in the middle of your card. It's a really fun, interactive way to provide that extra bit of surprise to the recipient of your cards. I made a different card earlier this month with two raccoons meeting in the middle to kiss, so I thought I'd give it a try with the Prince and Princess from the Magical Dragon stamp set. In addition to the Magical Dragon stamp set and dies, I also used the Once Upon a Time stamp set, the Castle Die-namics, the Stitched Heart Peekaboo Window Die-namics, the Grassy Fields Die-namics, and the Stitched Fishtail Sentiment Die-namics. I used smooth white cardstock for the card base, Grout Gray, Cement Gray, and Gravel Gray for the castle, and Poppy cardstock for the sentiment banner. I stamped the Whimsical Woodgrain background onto a scrap of Kraft white cardstock using Kraft dye ink. Here I'm scoring my 5.5 inch by 8.5 inch smooth white card base at 2 1/8 inches on both the left and right sides of the 5.5 inch edge. And then I perfect the creases with my Teflon bone folder. Off camera, I used the Mini Cloud Edges stencil to blend some Tumble Glass Distress ink onto the front as well as the inside center portion of the card base. Also off camera, I used the Mini Brick Wall stencil to lightly blend some Pumice Stone Distress ink onto the cement gray pieces of the castle. To cut down on the bulk of the card, I used the thin 3D foam squares to assemble the card. These allow for dimension, but without the thickness of regular foam squares. You can see that I die cut the turrets of the castle from the Grout Gray and Gravel Gray cardstock, and I'm assembling them here. I die cut the door of the castle from the Woodgrain stamped Kraft cardstock, and I die cut the stitched heart from the center of the brick wall that will go on the inside of the card. I die cut some strips of sour apple cardstock for grass, and I stamped the sentiment from the Once Upon a Time stamp set onto the centerpiece of grass with black licorice hybrid ink. I did all of this off camera as I really wanted to focus on showing you how to make the interactive mechanism and not bore you to death with the basic details of my card. I also stamped and die cut the Prince and Princess from the Magical Dragon stamp set and colored them with the Copics listed here. Here are the measurements of acetate that you need for your mechanism. I decided to show you how to create the interactive mechanism with some colored acetate first, just to show you how it's created. And then I'll show you how I created it with a clear acetate for my card. I like to use clear acetate so that it's not as noticeable, but you can use regular cardstock for the mechanism if you'd prefer that instead. I'm starting off by adding a 1/4 inch score tape to the ends of each of the long strips. You'll need to add score tape or your favorite strong adhesive to one side of one end of each of the strips, and on both sides of the other end of each strip. I'm using my Smart Grid pad to help me measure a 1/4 inch on the end of each strip because that's how much tape you'll need. I'm going to speed up the camera while I finish adhering the tape, and I'll try and explain the theory behind the engineering of the mechanism. The red acetate represents the pulley for the right character, the princess, and the green acetate represents the pulley for the left character, the prince. Once you have all the score tape adhered, align the strips green, red, and overlap them 1.5 inches in the middle. You'll want the ends of the strips with the score tape on both sides to be overlapping in the middle. Once they're aligned, remove the score tape release paper on the middle ends. This is where you'll adhere your characters. I'm adhering the prince to the middle ends of the green acetate and the princess to the middle ends of the red acetate. You'll want to place them so that they're close to each other before you stick them down. Then, once they're stuck on good, flip the mechanism over and remove the release paper on the middle ends and adhere the yellow strips behind each character. This stabilizes the mechanism and allows for easy sliding back and forth. Now let's do it again, only this time using clear acetate. I've trimmed the acetate exactly as before and adhered the score tape on the ends of the strips. This time though, I decided it might be easier to adhere the stabilizing strips first and then flip the mechanism over and adhere the characters to the other side. In the end, I think I like this method better because it really kept those strips aligned without as much fussing with them. Next, I'm removing the release tape and adhering the characters, and I'm really able to align them better now that the strips are already stabilized. Just as before, I adhere the princess to the middle ends of the right set of strips and the prince to the middle ends of the left set of strips. And now I'm ready to adhere the mechanism to the card base. I forgot to film the part where I scored the left and right ends of the acetate for ease in adhering it to the card base. This really helped me stick the end tabs to the inside gutter of the card base. I'm using the portion of the castle that I previously created to figure out exactly where I want the mechanism to be. And after a little bit of shifting, I finally have it where I want it. And I remove the release tape and stick the ends in place. Seeing the mechanics of this come together and actually work made my heart go pitter-patter. I should tell you though, as much as I'd like to take credit, I did not invent this technique. I don't know who did, but if you know, please let me know so that I can give them the proper credit. Now that the mechanism is in place, I can adhere the castle piece to the inside. I've added 2 layers of regular foam squares to the back of the castle wall, and I'm removing the release paper on the lower 2 rows of the adhesive, just to give me a little wiggle room before I press it down tight. And now I can adhere the top portion of the wall. It works! Now I can adhere the rest of the pieces of the castle to the front of my card. I'm using the thin 3D foam squares again to keep the bulk of the card to a minimum. I'm sticking the right and left sides of the castle down, and then I'll stick the center wall in place with foam adhesive only on the back of the right side. Scene building is one of my favorite things to do with a card. The castle dynamics were absolutely perfect to complete the vision of this project. Now I can adhere the assembled turrets with more thin 3D foam squares. You can see that I realized I had 1 foam square too many for the center turret, so I carefully rub it off with my finger. No harm, no foul. That's the nice thing about foam squares. If you get one in the wrong place, you can easily remove them without ruining your entire project, most of the time. Once the turrets are in place, I'm applying some tape runner adhesive to the windows of the turrets, and I place them inside the window cutouts. For the center turret, I apply adhesive only to the left side of the back of the window. And thank goodness for my handy tweezers. I seriously don't know what I'd do without them, as they're like my third hand. Now I can adhere the sentiment banner to the inside of the card. I stamped the sentiment from the Once Upon a Time stamp set onto some poppy cardstock using Sweet Tooth pigment ink. I heat embossed it with white embossing powder and die cut it using the stitched Fishtail sentiment dynamics. I'm adhering it below the heart opening with more of the thin 3D foam squares. And there you have it, friends. Papercraft engineering at its finest. Nothing makes me happier than to see true movement in my cards. I'm seriously obsessed with this technique, so you might be seeing it again very soon. Thanks so much for watching my video today. I hope you enjoyed it and that you'll give this double peekaboo slider technique a try. Be sure and check out the other videos on the MFT YouTube channel for more great content, and have an awesome day.